and kind of looking in two dimension now. It seems kind of flat, yeah. But let's kind of finish this off. And so they go around, recap real fast. Kahakuloa and Wailua, where you guys saw in 3D. You guys could see them move around, passing all of these places. Hana up to Hawaii Island. They were stuck in a channel off of here, and were sighted off of Hawi as Cook's ship was coming this way and all their way around to Kealakekua Bay here in Ka'avaloa. Okay, so Kalaniʻopuʻu was our king, and the major things that were happening, or the major ideas of the time, were these: trade. Okay, so the Hawaiians looked at what Captain Cook's men had. They were at war. They had a vision and a goal in mind. So trade, right? They traded weapons. They traded provisions. They traded water and food for guns, for ammunition, for iron, things that they could use in their conquests. Okay, and you have to remember too that our ali'i, especially during that time, it was pretty much a military society. Okay, Hawaii, as we're gonna see, as you've seen already, was a feudal structure. Okay, it was very much militaristic in many senses. Okay, so trade and practicality. Okay, Hawaiian weapons were evolving technology of advancement, and so what they saw would be an obvious advantage to them. The kahuna. Okay, so this presents us with another interesting facet. Okay, because the kahuna are priestly class, so you had your ali'is and priests being different, right? Um, so the ali'is were thinking, this is war. I need to, one, finish off my battles. Two, maybe I don't even care if Captain Cook's an Akua or a Kanaka. Who cares? Whatever I can use him for. Okay, and I'm just sort of speaking bluntly about this portion of history because that's the way it was. But the Kahuna, and this is sort of my thinking and reading into this part of history. I'm not maybe terribly sure about this, but the more I read and the more I think about this, the more I think that the Kahuna had to have sort of been a little bit self-interested in that, if they were trying to sort of bring up their power, heighten their power, advance themselves a little bit, because if Captain Cook was seen as a god, you know, then they would need the kahuna to relate to this god, which would elevate the status of the kahuna. So maybe they wanted to believe or promote the fact that he was an akua, maybe more than he really was. Okay, but that's just sort of my conjecture. Time of war and testing. Again, they were testing Cook. Okay, they were testing him. But as in the Hawaiian way, they had to make sure. So Lono i Kamakahiki, our name again that was in red in the genealogy before, okay, comes into play. Was he Lono, right? And again, he Akua, he Kanaka. Was he a god or was he just a man? And the consensus was growing that, he's just one guy, he's just one regular person, okay? In fact, Hawaiian ali'i weren't just men, they were Akua by their genealogy, okay? So here we go. Third arrival, okay? Notice the header changed to Captain Cook's third arrival, okay? And so Kalaniʻopuʻu was king February 4th, 1779. Captain Cook got his provisions, settled up his affairs, got on board his ship, and left Kealakekua. Okay, and it was supposed to be uneventful. So again, Lono leaves Hawaii. Okay, so what happens when Lono leaves Hawaii? He's supposed to go, according to legend and all of the mo'olelo that happened before. When Lono leaves, finally he leaves. Okay, and maybe he'll return generations later or whatever. But he doesn't just turn around and come back. That's not how it's supposed to go down. Okay, but what happens in our mo'olelo? The Mass of Lono. Okay, so when Captain Cook is leaving, about a day out, something's very, very strange happens to Captain Cook's ship. His mast snaps and breaks, forcing him to turn around and head back to Kealakekua. Oops. I actually was on the Hokulea sailing in the Pailolo Channel when our mast snapped a few years ago. So I can tell you firsthand that it's a very life-threatening experience, okay? And sort of, compound that with the size of the mass of the resolution, which must have been pretty huge, okay? So the kahuna, now they were sort of defaced, right? And people kind of knew at that point, well, hey, this isn't Lono. He's not supposed to come back, right? That's not how the story's supposed to go. That's not how it was told to us, right? So his ship comes back. And again, I have the phrase here, He kanaka ho'ikau, which in English means he is indeed a man. Okay, so now it's sort of unveiled here. It's revealed his status. Okay, so now things kind of get ugly, so to speak. Okay, and it sort of the situation deteriorates pretty rapidly for Captain Cook and his men. Okay, because of this downgraded status, right? And people feel like they've been cheated, right? Palea went out and started raiding Captain Cook's ship. Okay, and to make a long story short, it went back and forth and back and forth, and Cook's ship was being raided, and their smaller ship-to-shore boats were being stolen and stripped for wood and parts and stuff like that. So Captain Cook had the brain fart. I mean, he tried to have a brilliant idea, which backfired on him, that he was going to go take Kalaniʻopuʻu hostage until all his stuff was returned. Well, that was not a very brilliant strategy, okay? So, in his attempt to persuade Kalaniʻopuʻu to come with him so he could take him hostage, Kalaniʻopuʻu's men intervened, okay? And they tried to reach out, one of Cook's men, to grab the shoulder of Kalaniʻopuʻu. His men tried to pull him away, okay? And then a skirmish ensued, and Captain Cook was knocked by one of the Hawaiian warriors and fell to the ground, okay? And his head was bleeding, and he was moaning and groaning. Well, everyone looked at him saying, hey, if this guy's moaning and groaning and bleeding, well then it's doubly sure that this guy's not an akua. He's just a man. He bleeds, right? So at that point, this long name you see here of the warrior who has the distinction of killing Captain Cook, Kalani Mano Kaho'ovaha, according to Samuel Kamakau. As Cook's men were rushing to save him, this one warrior took out his war club with his shark tooth weapon and slayed all four guys within a flash of light. Within an instant, he took all of these four guys down and sliced them to bits. And that's how proficient our Hawaiian warriors were. And so Cook's men were just freaking out, like, oh my gosh. They started firing their guns and they ran back to their ship. Okay, so it was only their guns that really saved them. If it was hand-to-hand combat, Cook's men would have all been slaughtered. So the dust settles. Okay, this huge skirmish, and Captain Cook's men return to their ship. Hawaiians are sort of now in this intermediate stage. Okay, who's gonna make the next move? So Cook's dead. Okay, and the Hawaiians take Cook's remains. Okay, and here's what happens. Okay, history tells us that that Cook's remains were returned to Cook's men on the ship. Okay, but as this thing says here, two perspectives. And this is neat because this is culture contact, like you saw in the video First Contact. This is Hawaiian First Contact. And I'm sure in everybody's diverse cultures in this class, you can all relate to some sort of story in your own past of your own culture about cultural perspectives or misunderstandings, okay, between one culture and another. And here we have a very neat instance because there was one act of the bones being returned from the Hawaiians to Captain Cook's ship, to Captain Cook's men. But each side interpreted that single act in two different ways. One act, two different interpretations, two different perspectives. Okay, and this has led to quite a big controversy. Okay, so most people sort of reading Cook's journals and the papers that were published and sort of English lore, maybe, I don't know, Western lore, to sort of lump it all together, that people said, well, the Hawaiians worshipped Cook as a god because they took Cook's bones and returned it to Cook's men, right? To that mind, the English mind at the time, was that that was an offering and a show of respect from the Hawaiians to the English, right? They were giving back the bones of this great person, right? However, it was the exact opposite from the Hawaiian point of view, which is the neat part. When you look at it from the Hawaiian perspective, it was 180-degree opposite. Okay, remember now, this was a time of war. How did Hawaiian warriors treat their enemies? How did they treat their enemies in battle? Well, like a lot of cultures, if they despise their enemy, they would despise them not only in life but in death. They would dishonor them, right? And one of the worst ways in Hawaiian thinking that you could do to a warrior is to expose their bones to the sun, right? When when an alii died, right, they were carefully hidden away. Their bones were never to be surfaced again. Okay, so a lot of times if you go to the Bishop Museum, you see these bowls made with human teeth in them or bone artifacts. Those are meant to taunt the memory of that person because you're displaying that in a manner of ridicule, right? And this is what they did with Cook's bones. From the Hawaiian perspective, they took Cook's bones and they disgraced them, right? And they put them on display, right? As if to say, look, here's the big FU, right? And they took those bones and gave it back to Cook's men as a taunt. They did it as an open show of disrespect to who this person was, right? He wasn't a warrior. He was easily defeated. Here's his bones back. It's like sticking the middle finger to them from the Hawaiian point of view. So it's kind of neat how you have one act, but two different perspectives, okay? So, and the other fact remains that he was punished by the gods, okay? So this is also neat because you have now in with respect to Cook's remains, the two cultures disagree on what happened. However, both cultures agree that Cook deserved to die. Okay, I'm going to say that again. From the Hawaiian point of view and from the Christian point of view, right? Cook deserved to die, right? Cook's own men said that the reason why Captain Cook died was because he blasphemed against his creator, right? Because think about it. In all the time that Cook was in Hawaii, right? I mean, he was sailing around for over a year. He wasn't on Hawaiian shores for a year, but he was in the company of Hawaiians who were claiming he was a god for quite a long time. And at no point did Captain Cook ever say, no, I'm not a god, I'm just a guy, right? He, remember, was a Christian. And it was at that moment he should have said, no, I'm a god. I mean, I'm a person. I'm not a god because that goes against my religion, right? So it's like one of us going around saying, yes, I'm a god, right? If you're Christian. And it is said that that's why Cook's mask broke and that's why he died, right? And from the Hawaiian point of view too, right? He was punished by the Akua because he was not Lono, and he was saying he was Lono, and so he got his kuika makaya. I'm trying to think of the English term, but his revenge was had. Okay, but anyway, that's how Cook meets his end, and this is a famous painting again by Herb Koinui Kane, showing Cook's struggles and his battles, but how Hawaii became a part of the post-contact era is pretty neat. And here we go. And anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video lecture.